as risky as you might think, and the amount you learn through mistakes in that time period, even if it goes wrong. So the risk is you jump and then it goes horribly wrong and you've got to come back with your tail between your legs. But what you've learned in that year or 2 years would probably stand you in good stead to get any other role that you may have wanted, having come from that corporate role in the first place. It is tough though, and I think starting straight out, we probably could have done what we've done in 5 years in about 3, but it's allowed us to set up a company that is very different to what it would have been had we had prior recruitment experience. We're very non-recruitery as a business, and I think that kind of sticks us out from the crowd, whereas if we come from being recruiters first and then gone to set up a recruitment company, I think we probably have quite a different makeup and treat our candidates quite differently to the way I hope we do. So I don't know, I think...
I mean, there is something to be said, for like knowing nothing, because you're starting from zero. So like, I think there's both sides to it. Obviously, I wouldn't change anything we've done, and you guys have done really well. So like, and I think there is a benefit there, but I think there's just, there's a good two sides of it, and I think it just depends the type of business that you're running as well. Because like, there's some stuff, I'm working for this investment fund now, and there is some stuff that you just would not fund if it came from a graduate, because they just need deep domain expertise, and there's some stuff that you can just hit the ground running straight away.
Also, don't over-egg the idea. If you're genuinely interested in setting up a business, it's so much more about the people than it is about the idea. The idea is 1%, if that. If you've had an idea that no one else in the world has thought of before, it's probably not a very good idea. So there will be other people doing it out there, and competition is just proof of concept and proof that there potentially could be a market for what you're thinking about doing. It's then about whether you can do it better than people, and if you can persuade people that you can do it better than people, then you'll be able to get access to investment. As you say, it's easier if you've got prior experience, so it's less risky than it's been before. And if you can get that initial investment first and kind of say to investors, right, well, I'm going to jump if I get X, be it crowdfunding, VC, etc., then hopefully de-risk things.
One quick thing I'll sort of relay from my on-purpose training on Friday actually is, so we had someone in who was the founder of the education startup that I work for, and he said his most important hire was the CFO, who was not from any kind of education or startup background, and he thinks, and he's now running his second business, and he was saying that that's a really important time where you bring someone in who is not working at the kind of chaotic pace that the startup is, but actually is willing to kind of ride with a few of the messy processes. So a little bit of flexibility, but still bringing the kind of rigor from their background. So yeah, CFO is a good option.
Like right now, the actual idea of like setting up my own company in the future sounds impossible. And I was just wondering like what the challenges are that you found were associated like with the stages in your business development, like other than the actual capital itself. Like any challenges, difficulties that you met during the process?
I mean, there's like so many every day.
Yeah.
But it's also amazing. And I think actually one of the biggest challenges is getting over this mindset that you think it's going to be really hard. Like I know when we sort of first took the jump, although I've sort of said I've always wanted to start my own business, it was still absolutely terrifying. I was like, I'm going to really fuck up everything. But once you accept that you probably are going to do that, then it becomes a bit easier. So like, really small stuff like navigating HMRC is just total nightmare, but like you have to get used to it, and I think the biggest thing is the only thing that'll help you overcome this is if you have a real passion for learning. Like you have to want to learn this stuff, and you have to want to engage with the material out there. Like you can't just think, oh, I'll just dive straight in and it all sort of sort itself out. Actually go away, like read stuff up. You'll be surprised the amount of people that start businesses and just like don't even bother to look online. Like, I mean, I had a conversation with someone the other day about tax relief on their investment. They'd already raised investment and they knew nothing about it. And they're like, oh, my accountant will do it. It's like, you're a team of 3, you'll do it. And I think that's the point, like just acknowledging you are going to have to take a lot of pressure. Like, it's going to be a roller coaster. There'll be some days, I mean, I did a talk and I said, there'll be some days that you'll skip to work and some days that you'll cry in the shower. And that's like, it's funny, but it's also true. And I think that's the point, is actually be brace yourself for it being like brutal but incredible, and just be fine with making mistakes. Like, you are going to, don't break any laws. But other than that, largely, go ahead, like, make as many as possible, because that's the only way you're going to learn.
So you guys are very much in the thick of it at the moment with Call the Crowd and the Bird Song, and you're actually doing it. Tell us about it. What have you learned? And
Yeah, so I think one thing for me is I set up my company 9 months before I started on purpose, and really I think, along with some of the other stories, kind of did it accidentally in that I kind of was given this opportunity to do a crowdfunding program with Ben and Jerry's, and you know, that's kind of how they wanted to roll with me as a consultant to them, and I've been then kind of going on to get my second and third clients, and I think, and some of that has been in my spare time on the program, and I think some of the advice that I've got is, you know, from people who've tried running businesses on like 2-3 days a week, or, you know, 1 day a week officially, but ends up being 2, and you know, their advice is build up enough money to actually take the time to give it a proper effort, or be really trustful of the people that you work with and really let them do stuff that you're not trying to double check and, you know, think you're the best at. And I think, you know, with some of the projects that I've worked on in the last 6 months, I've fallen foul of that, in that I haven't had the time to get around to stuff quickly enough, but I have been, you know, to kind of micromanaging things. So I think that's really important, to really trust your colleagues.
Just quickly, there is a great course that you should look at, which is called How to Start a Startup by Y Combinator. It's like a great introduction, like there's some scale-up stuff in there, but if you want a really basic introduction for what running a business is going to be like, you've got people like the founder of Airbnb on there doing talks about culture and things like that, so it's all free, it's on YouTube, go and watch that.
wait, what's somebody said?
The biggest one for us was actually what other people thought, to be honest. So we came back from travelling and said, Mum and Dad, we're going to start a business, finding other people jobs. To which they said, well, why don't you just get a bloody job? And the early doors, all your mates thinking, well, what are you doing? You're just the guy who was in drinking societies at uni or whatever it was, and other people will instantly think that you're going to fail, so you've got to push yourself further and prove to them, and after 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 months they start taking you quite a lot more seriously. And as Lauren says, the highs are way higher, the lows are way lower, and that doesn't stop. And whenever you think you've overcome the big hurdles, there's another one there. It's always 2 steps forward, 1 step back, and you constantly have to have the mindset of an entrepreneur and a manager in order to be able to really take things forward, because there's always a new challenge.
I think, what you both sort of said, there will definitely be a lot of days when you're like, what the hell am I doing? Like, this will obviously never work, I'm terrible at it, like, I should just get a normal job. And that's gonna happen, like, and then like you'll have that one day and the next day you're like, no, this is amazing, this is the best thing that's ever happened. But the thing that you need to do is like not be perturbed by the days that you don't know what you're doing, and I think there's a few things that can help with that. So if you're doing it on your own, it's obviously way scarier, and if you can get a team, that's amazing. And then like you'll be having a bad day but the other people will be having a good day, so you kind of bounce off each other. And if you can be in a space with other startups, that helps loads. So we were on an accelerator program for 6 months called Bethnal Green Ventures, and we were in the office with 10 other startups all the time, and that helps so much because you're around people who are doing the same thing and facing the same challenges, and it helps you stop wondering why you're doing it, and you don't have to convince yourself to keep doing it, which is really helpful. The other main thing I'd say is like, don't be too precious about your idea, because the first idea that you come up with will it will definitely change. It like maybe completely, or maybe elements of it will change, and if you kind of cling too hard to the idea, because if you're sort of too in love with the idea and not willing to be flexible, then you're way less likely to succeed. Like, don't be defensive about your idea. Be really open to feedback. If you see that one part of it isn't going to work, be open to sort of changing it completely and be as flexible as you can, especially at the beginning. And you're way more likely to succeed if you have that mindset.
Yeah, so in terms of like, you guys obviously came out of uni and you maybe had some ideas about wanting to like impact society and stuff, and you have all your political leanings and stuff. In terms of still job hunting, like when an employer or prospective employer would ask you, so what are your future career goals? And like maybe you're applying for a job and like it's not in the industry you necessarily want to work with, or maybe like you want to be part, you want to help change an industry, and you're like, I kind of want to change what you're doing. How did you like get around that question? What examples did you give? Like,
I think you can be broader. Like, one of the things that I'm interviewing at the moment, like it's obviously a bit of a different stage, but like one of the questions they ask me is where do I want to be in 5 years? And the likelihood is I probably want to start my own company. I can't really say that in an interview because then I'm going to leave. But my point is always, I want these things, which is I want to work with a really smart team that help me grow and push me. I want to do a lot of learning and development around X, Y, and Z, and that can be focused on your own personal goals. And I want to be able to have an impact in whatever work I do, and have looked back within 5 years and thought, yes, I've had an impact in this role. Now that's it's quite broad, but it sort of helps divert the fact that you might not want to be in that industry, but it also answers the question from your own personal perspective without having to lie. And I think, that, and there is no harm in being honest. Like, I think there is something to be said for saying, I'm not sure I see myself in this industry in 5 years, but I want to really get to grips with it and understand what it's like, because right now it's something I'm super passionate about. And actually a lot of people interviewing will know you're probably not going to stay longer than 3 years anyway. In reality, you'd have to be totally blunt, but I think there is something to be said for a level of honesty.
Not too honest.
No, not too honest. The recruiter will tell you no.
Probably his advice is probably better than mine. But I would say, if you say to them, I want to change this industry, but have the humility to recognise that I need to learn it first, and I want to learn about X, Y, and Z in my time here, I would feel that's quite a strong case.
I think it's completely unreasonable for any employer where you haven't worked there before ever to expect you to say, oh yeah, I want to work for you for the next 10 years or whatever it is. So what I think most companies want to hear is that your vague ambitions for what you want to do are generally aligned with what their business is doing. And Lauren's example of saying the skills you want to develop and the type of team you want to work in is fantastic. And then you just need to give the impression that if things go really well, you are open to change. No one knows what their 5-year plan is. Any business that's ever written a 5-year plan, I'm not sure any one of them will ever have kept to it. It's pretty much the only thing that definitely won't happen. So as long as you present yourself as these are the skills that I want to develop, this is why I'm applying for this role now, in the future I'm obviously open, and if I find a company that really matches with what I want, then I'm open to it. I don't think that's when honest but not too honest. What I was meaning by that is if you say I want to be here for 6 months because I want to get these skills.
Don't do that.
Yeah, companies, well, small companies especially, they don't think in a 5-year time horizon. So what we would want to hear is, all right, she definitely sees herself here for 2 years. She's got big aims and ambitions. That's great. She's motivated. She wants to learn and develop. And if we show her and we develop at her pace, then maybe she's up for staying here and continuing a great deal.
I think it's also I think it's also quite a good litmus test for the type of company it is as well. Because we've worked at Zealify, we worked with some great companies who wanted people to leave so they could shout about their alumni and what they did. So it's so Go Cardless is a great startup, and they have an alumni group on LinkedIn. They all talk about where they've gone. They're some of them have gone to Google, Facebook. Some of them started insane startups. But they shout about that because they're so proud. So actually, knowing that you might go on and do something insane, they want to grab onto that and be part of your journey and be that little name when it says, she's just raised $1 billion and she used to work at X company. Actually, that's quite a nice story to be part of.
going to say, it's a slightly extreme example, but very true. So we hired recently, and the candidate told me, I want to work for you 2 years, but no more than 2 years. And we hired her because she was really good. I really respected the honesty, and to be honest, it's kind of, it's really good to know that. And from a managing her point of view, it's like, great, I know exactly how long she's going to be around for, I know what she's looking for to get out of this job. I can set things up in a way that I have a real confidence she will be here 2 years, and who knows, if she loves it, she might stay longer, but that's definitely long enough for me to say I'm happy to commit at that kind of level.
Nash, you had a question earlier?
I did. You guys touched on accelerators and investors in general. Do you think accelerator programs are a good way for young people to test ideas and develop their businesses? Or do you think they're an extension to programs like On Purpose and Worthwhile?
I think there's some horrendous accelerators. And I think some of them are a waste of time. So if you're just, I think one of the things I'd say is it's a very overcrowded market. And there are some that are just head and shoulders above the rest. And if you can get into one of those, then go and get into one of those, because you'll never get an education like it. But I think there's a lot that will just waste your time and won't be relevant to what you're doing, and you'll spend time on these sessions and it's just not right. And I think that's when you should steer away, because it does tend to trap people who have not very much experience, some of the worst ones. We flew out to Estonia to apply for an accelerator. I mean, God, how desperate were we? That was in the first year of running our first business. But yeah, and that would have been a terrible mistake. Thank God it was so cold I didn't want to live there. But I think that there's this idea that if you get into an accelerator, you'll do really well, and your company will grow really well, and then you'll raise a load of funding. And actually, for a lot of accelerators over the past 5 years, since they started and grew and some of them closed down, that's not worked out. So doing your due diligence on them, and that applies to investors as well, ensuring that you do your own due diligence on your investors is really important, because I think you are partnering with them, you're getting into bed with them, you want to know what they're going to do if shit hits the fan. And I swear so much on this, I'm really sorry, because I forget it's being recorded. But there's definitely stuff we should edit out of this. Anyway, but I think that you have to really know who, it's the same as choosing your co-founder in the team we talked about earlier. You're going to spend time with these people, maybe not all the time, but when things go bad, they're going to be there. And if you don't like them, that's going to be a very awkward conversation to have. So, yeah, I mean, I think it's a half yes. If you can get into a Textiles or a YC, then I'd say yes. If you can't, then I'm being really specific, because there's Bethnal Green is really great for social enterprise. There's some really good vertical specifics like fintech, things like that. I think that's really good, because then they have a specialism. I think there's some really rubbish ones as well.
Tom?
So I think we kind of touched on this question a bit about jumping from corporate to startup life. And the question I have is, how do you kind of get away from the addiction that is a monthly salary?
Well, startups still pay a salary. But yeah, I think it is really tough once you start climbing the ladder and you see yourself edging towards or maybe even over 6 figures, and then we talk to a lot of candidates like that, and the comparable opportunities are more 50 or so. And it is a big cut and a big drop. It's ultimately whatever's right for that individual at that time, and if you really believe in the mission of the business that you're going to join, maybe there are some share options and a chance to get a part of the pie that you otherwise wouldn't get, and yeah, you are sacrificing some of your paycheck. But if you're not happy or you're not enjoying what you're doing, then I think a lot of people can get onto the corporate ladder and then ultimately look back at the end of their 20s and say, where the hell did that go? I spent all my time in the office on Saturdays and Sundays, and yes, I got paid loads, but I didn't have a chance to spend any of it because I was in the office. So I don't know, it just depends on who you are and what you want really. And
I'd also preface that and say, though, you might be in the office on Saturdays and Sundays for the startup.
Yeah, that's
well.
true.
So you're going to really love it.
But you can get, if you really do enjoy it, that's kind of what it's about, I think, anyway.
I mean, we used to see with our candidates, people would get to a breaking point where they're I don't care how much money you pay me, I cannot stay here. And I think sometimes people with that mentality are really meant to work in startups. Not saying if you don't get there, you're not meant to. But I think there is something to be said for when you hit that point, you're you can pay me no money, I just want to leave. And then you'll go out and find somewhere you can be really excited about and really passionate and really get involved. But it is hard, like, you can get sucked in, and the sooner you can escape, probably the better if you want to go.
You can tell we're all really passionate about it, but some people love the corporate world as well. We should remain even. There are some fantastic opportunities there, and being a partner at a law firm, or these are fantastic roles if you can get there and carry on climbing that ladder. So I would never persuade someone or really sell or say you've got to leave, it's rubbish, because if you actually get there and you enjoy it, then it's a very stable career, and you can earn a lot of money, as you said.
Yeah, and I think I definitely think that's a really important point, because we at the start of Zealify we placed some people who were definitely meant to be in corporates for the rest of their life. And it was really the wrong decision, because like 3 years ago, even now it's obviously really fashionable, but 3 years ago it was so fashionable to be in a startup that people were just flooding out and actually not really seeing the challenges that face them, spending 3 to 6 months in the startup freaking out and then moving back to a corporate. So I do think there is something to be said. People like the structure, they like the organisation, the professional development that you get, they like the opportunities to reach those goals, and I don't think there's any shame in that at all. I think there is this very sort of cult of startup that people shouldn't follow if it's not right for them, and you should talk.
The bits I was going to add was, one, look for opportunities where you don't have to quit the job just yet, but can get some experience of it, and that might just be you volunteering to like meet a mate of yours who's doing something in that area for like a pint once a month, just to really try and understand what it is like, so that you make a bit more of an informed decision. I think the other thing is, you people will probably be able to go back to those corporate jobs, and so that I think does lower the risk. But I'm not an expert in that. But I mean, I would have thought it's for a corporate to see someone who has gone and done something off their own back, shown a bit of initiative, realise it's not for them, is actually going to build their add to their case to work for that place.
And I think, you talked about earlier about sort of entrepreneurs and things like that, and I think that's...
But yeah, I think there's lots of good there. I think I definitely don't want to over-glorify the startup piece, but for me, taking a big salary cut was one of the most liberating things I ever did, because I think you do just spend what you earn as like some kind of mental rule, or it's just really hard to control it. So taking a big salary cut, I was terrified, because I thought, well, how will I live on that much less money? And then I did, and I was living just the same life, just making slightly different decisions, and it was like this way of, okay, I don't need to earn this money, from actually I only need much less than that to live and be happy, and it's something to reflect on.
And so by virtue of running Worthwhile, you're working with graduates every single day that are going into the social sector where salaries are famously lower, and what is it about the social sector that's keeping them there?
I think it probably comes back to your question earlier, and is this generation more ethical? I think it's a really interesting one. We can cut lots of ways. My sense is it's not a more ethical generation at our level or at the moment. I think it's just, there's some really frightening things happening in the world. Like, I believe climate change is happening. I think a lot of people
Radical.
We're saying that those words right out. But that's going to affect our generation and our children in a way that it hasn't affected previous generations. I think more and more people are just waking up to that reality, looking at the migrant crisis and looking at things happening in the world, and more people are saying it just doesn't make sense to live a life that puts the blinders onto those things, and saying that, fine, it might be riskier, it might be harder, but doing something that contributes to that is really important. And then the other thing for us with Worthwhile is making sure that while people are on the scheme, people are thriving and having happy lives. And realising that salary is important and financial well-being is really important, but it's not the only thing that helps people to be happy and to live fulfilled and thriving lives. And the reason we see so many people staying in the space, we think, is because they have good experience in work, they're earning enough money to sort of be happy and to see a positive future for themselves, and they're doing something they believe in and something they love.
I think as well, so the salary is one thing, but definitely shouldn't be a martyr completely. If you're taking a pay cut, make sure you're working with people that you really like and have a good time with. Make sure you really like your job. Don't take a job that you like with really boring people who on a really low salary just because you really care about the cause. Absolutely never do that. do make sure you enjoy it. Even definitely.
And ask for like non-monetary perks as well. So like, you know, if you like really like one of your directors that you're working with, and you're like, so like, can I have a day, a month with you to work on X, or like half a day a month to do this? Or can I, you know, do you have a budget to send me to one conference a year? Or like stuff that isn't adding to your salary but is adding to your personal happiness and your personal development as well.
More questions? Mike?
So earlier you mentioned sort of recruiters can be your friend and things. I'd be interested, first of all, who has ever used a recruiter in the room before? Hands up. Anyone? I have absolutely no idea how a recruiting sort of whole thing works really at all, but could you kind of do it step by step of
Rob?
why is it?
Feel free.
So I see recruitment piece as one which is consulting and advisory for you guys. So the way we work, you apply online, you apply online, you sign up, it takes 3-4 minutes, register your CV, tell us the sectors that you're interested in. We then work in 2 ways. You then have access to our job board where you can apply to any of the roles that we have going on. One thing to mention about startups and scale-ups, they don't work on the traditional graduate cycle. It's not September through November the previous year to then start the next year. It's more like, can I have someone yesterday? It's very, very quick turnaround, so stay in touch with all the roles that are on there. The other way we work is we have a group of 11 different recruitment consultants who are constantly taking new briefs from clients and just calling candidates to have a chat. Basically, for us, it's about understanding exactly what it is that you want to do. Everyone's so, I mean, a lot of the roles at startups and scale-ups, you can't necessarily even pigeonhole into a certain sector and area, and it's about trying to match your skill set to things you haven't necessarily thought about before. So that's our first piece. But then once we've sent you over a role that you're interested in, and we're so vehemently against pitching you stuff that you're not up for, you'll have heard about recruitment agencies calling you about roles in, be it estate agencies or other recruitment agencies that you're not keen on at all. For us, it's more about let's see what you're interested in. If we don't have anything, we'll tell you, and we'll then tell you when something does come in. If we do have something you're interested in, we either have a quick Skype informal interview with you or get you in for a face-to-face meeting and then recommend you to the client. With the clients, they typically miss at least one round of interviews because we're making a recommendation of between 3 and 5 candidates for each role, and most of our clients work with us exclusively, so they aren't taking applications from elsewhere. So it's the only way of getting into those particular roles, and loads of them, startups and scale-ups, by their very nature, you won't have heard of a large proportion of them, but you will have heard of others. You've heard of GoCardless, as Lauren was saying before, Deliveroo, etc., etc. There are lots of big names in the space, and there are also some 1-2 man bands who you might be interested in.
Yeah, and I think it's worth saying because startups are so busy, they often don't put their jobs on their careers pages, so they will just use recruiters. So, like, even if you're not really in the market to move jobs, I would always recommend taking a call from a recruiter, unless you know they're awful. But, like, as a general rule, just to, like, start that relationship, because if you then want to leave or, like, jump ship or go somewhere else, you then can look through your sort of little black book of recruiters and just call them and be like, hey, I'm on the market now, can we have a chat? And the decent ones will probably say, yeah, we won't have anything for you now, or yeah, let's sit down and have a chat and see what you're looking for. So I do think people paint recruiters in a bad way, but there are some really great ones out there. And if you engage with them in the right way, like my sister, very niche, but she is a solicitor and has used the same recruiter for her whole career. Because they just get her now. And I think there is something to be said for building that relationship with someone who wants to help you succeed, because then they also make a load of money.
Recruiters get a bad reputation for good reason. There are a lot of recruiters out there who follow terrible practices, not getting back to candidates, not giving you feedback on roles, blah blah blah, etc. So I'm sure you've heard it all before, but that's where you can stand out as being a bit different. And our business, our one-liner, built by graduates for graduates. We're about the grads that we work with. We've all come through the exact same thing. The average age of our business is somewhere between 23 and 24. We're a young team of like-minded individuals, and it's about trying to help people find what they're interested in. And we're as happy. This isn't quite true. We're very happy when you find the role that you want, whether that's through us or not through us.
Oh, that's not true.
We want people to get good roles, because genuinely, if you have a good experience with us and you go and find a role at another cool company, you're gonna, when they're hiring, you're gonna think of us to come back to. That's our attitude towards it, rather than trying to sell you something that you're not up for. It's a long-term play.
Sarah, was it Sarah or Sarah?
Sarah.
Sorry. You spoke about the program you were with for what was it?
Year Here.
Sorry, what was that? What was that role?
So Year Here is a postgraduate program in social innovation. So at the beginning they were only taking graduates, but now they're taking people a few years into their careers as well. And when I was on it, it was a 9-month program, but I think now they're doing 6. Super intense. So they throw you into a lot of different experiences in the social sector, and it's all about building solutions based on insight. So you have several different placements. One is like a frontline placement, so you're either working in like a homeless hostel or an old age centre, all kinds of stuff that is like technically classed as frontline, and you have to kind of build solutions to problems that you find there and kind of run your own projects, as well as working day to day. And then you do a consultancy placement, so you're working in a social sector organisation, so that could be, well, for me it was a local council. I think now they're doing companies as well, but like CSR in companies and things like that. And you get to kind of go into a larger organisation and innovate, which is quite cool. And then the final part is a incubator. So you have the opportunity on your own or in a team to really run with either something that you've come up with on the programme or a new idea and potentially turn it into your own social venture. So that could be like a social enterprise or a charity. And that's really cool. So you have like a lot of support. They make you, the whole ethos of Year Here is they make you kind of testing straight away. So you come up with an idea and they want you to test every part of it. You don't have time to plan really, really carefully. You have to kind of go out there and do the things, and that's a really good way of developing your idea, because you really quickly realise what's going to work and what's not, and what you should be running with and what changes you need to make. And beyond that, it's kind of, it's quite a small group, so I think they've got 17 people on this cohort. You get to know each other really well, you go out together, and it's like a lot of bonding and personal development. So yeah, I really highly recommend it. The next programme is in September, and I think they're taking applications from the end of August for the one after.
Cool. So conscious that we are running out of time, so to wrap up, I'm just going to ask one more question. What so far has been the proudest achievement in your careers, and why?
Tough. It's difficult, but I think when you get your first early successes, having had so many no's, it probably is one of the best ways. I remember, so Felix, my business partner, and I were working together early doors from a Starbucks in Embankment, which was directly equidistant between our two parents' houses, and then every so often we mix it up by working at each other's parents' houses, buy one coffee a day and steal their internet. But the first big placement we made, we were in my dining room at home, and Felix was on the phone to the client, having just made a placement, and this was something like a £5,000 fee for us, and to date we'd made a couple of £100. And so he was on the phone just kind of fist pumping, jumping up and down whilst remaining like a veneer of calm on the phone, and I was just staring at him like, it's amazing. So getting those early wins is a fantastic moment, but then there are so many small ones the whole time. I forgot to say before, if you know nothing about recruitment, our fees don't come at all from the candidates or from the grads, it's all from the company side to fight them, just to allay any concerns. You get all of your salary for yourself. But I think that sticks in the mind a little, and we still have our first bank statement framed with £100 on it.
So for me, one of the sort of earlier moments in setting up my business, when we got a job with Unilever, who is part of their supporting entrepreneurs want to, and as well social entrepreneurs want to test out some of their new product ideas via rewards crowdfunding. So we were helping design that program and support some of the ideas to get them ready for a crowdfunding campaign. And for me, that was fantastic, not only because it meant that one of the first clients, the second was a really well respected one in sort of sustainability, but also because they're a big company, and what I want to do is try and get some of the everyday products that we have more creative and more sustainable. So it's good to get in with a big one.
So, obviously I come at this from a different perspective, having just closed down something I've dedicated 4 years of my life to. But it is, for me, my proudest moment is that we did it at all. And I think, despite what happened, and despite the fact that it's no longer running, there is nothing I would rather have done with the last 4 years of my life. And I think I'm incredibly proud that we did it at all. But then in the same respect, I would say, we touched on it earlier about how hard it is. I think you've got to be aware that you could lose this all tomorrow. If you want to dedicate your time to building a business, things can go wrong, times change, it's not always that simple. And I think I'm so proud of what we did, but I'm also acutely aware that I'm quite proud of the fact that we've come out of it largely, not too emotionally damaged as well.
For me, particularly because my co-friend and I, we didn't have much experience behind us when we started the company, it feels really good when you realise that you're doing something that 6 months ago you had no idea about. That's a really cool feeling when you realise you just learned so much along the way. That's really good. And I think in general in startups it's really hard to properly celebrate your successes, because you're always thinking about the next thing, and this thing you've been trying so hard for feels really good in the moment, and then you're on to the next thing. But there are moments when you kind of realise how far you've come, which feel really good. We sell products made by women's organisations, and we have a split revenue model. So we take a cut, and then the rest of it goes to the women's charities every time we sell something. And some of the groups we work with, we've got elderly women who make knitwear, who are really cool. And we went to visit one of the groups recently, and they told us that they'd redone the kitchen with the money they'd made from knitting, which was so cool, because normally it goes into their running costs and stuff. So to see something that they'd actually done with the money was really good.
It's interesting. I think I totally empathise with the idea that you're always looking at the next thing and don't have time to really celebrate that. We've definitely had some really nice things happen. Winning funding is always nice. We won a few prizes, which is nice, but they kind of pass quite quickly. I think the things that have probably given me biggest satisfaction, seeing what our alumni are going on to do, or small conversations you have with people a little bit later, and seeing them doing something amazing and linking it back to something that happened whilst they were with us, and just getting a sense that this is working, or the thing that we are trying to do is starting to happen. But I think the biggest thing I'll take away personally is more in line with the idea that the places that doing a startup takes you to sometimes are really hard, and often fighting these existential crises when you're just absolutely empty and having been doing it for weeks on end. I think you've got nothing left to give, and kind of finding a reserve of energy, from somewhere, or thinking that when everything that could possibly have gone wrong has gone wrong, and still having the sort of quiet assurance saying, okay, this is what we need to do next, and going one step at a time, and just coming through a few of those encounters is something I'll take away, and no matter where it goes next, be very proud of.
Thank you so much for sharing all of your stories. I've learned a huge amount. I'm sure everybody else has as well. We've got space for a bit longer to leave too. Yeah. If people want to stay for drinks and networking a bit, can you guys join me in thank you?
Before you all go into networking, a quick reminder, every Friday, the last Friday of every month, we have an end of month social. This month is on the 26th at the Square Pig in Holborn, and we'd love to see as many of you there as possible. It's always a great time. And yeah, I'll leave you to it. Enjoy the networking.